Welcome back. Thank you for listening to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. Today's a heavy one, I'm going to warn you. Lorraine Reguly. She has a very powerful message of hope, but it comes with a story. So I'm preparing you for this one, folks. I'm not going to say much more. Thank you, Lorraine, for coming on the show. If you want to create some digital content, before we get into the heavy topic, if you want to create some digital content, go to getagripstudios.com. That getagripstudios.com. You can do a virtual podcast. You can create some digital content. For right now, we thank Lorraine Reguly for coming on the show and sharing this story with us. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Life podcast, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Hey, I do a podcast for a show called the I Am Not Alone podcast, and that's a podcast for the Pregnancy Care Center. And it's for women that have had unexpected pregnancies and require, additional support in order to go through with their pregnancy. So they're non-judgmental. They're not involved in the debate versus abortion versus pro-life, or they don't get into any of that. They're just there to help vulnerable women and their partners with pregnancies. And so I'm a little bit familiar. I've talked to a lot of women about these kinds of topics, where you have young women in situations of prostitution, drugs, this sort of thing. But I'm reading your biography here, and I don't know how to describe it. It sounds, where would you like to start?
Wherever you want to start.
Let's start when you were 14.
I'm very open, so yeah.
Let's start with what happened when you were 14.
Well, what happened when I was 14 is I was raped, and I was a virgin at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was a very devastating event. And I didn't know how to cope with it. And it basically changed the course of my life because I quit school. I went back every semester. I kept going, trying to do it. I was so depressed, and I just wanted to numb all of the negative emotions that I was feeling. So I ended up sleeping as much as I could, drinking, doing drugs, eating. I tried doing, everything I could to cope, but I didn't tell anybody what happened to me. And so I didn't get counseling for a very long time. And when I was 15, I tried to kill myself.
Okay. So let's slow down a second here. Let's slow down because I want to ask you a question, and how did the perpetrator get you into the situation where you were vulnerable to rape?
He was a friend of an older friend, and on the night that it happened, I had gotten into a fight with my father, and I basically ran away from home, which was the first time I ever did that. And I didn't have a place to stay. And so he had given me his phone number and told me to call him. And I called him and asked if I could spend the night. When I got there, I said I would sleep on the couch. I just needed a pillow and blanket. But he was very insistent that I sleep in the bed with him. There was enough room. And, this and that. So I did. And he wouldn't let me sleep. His hands were all over me. I tried fighting him off. I explained to him I was still a virgin. He didn't care. And he forced himself upon me.
What happened the next day?
He drove me to my exam at school, and that was that. We never spoke. We never saw each other. It was like nothing had happened. In the meantime, I was a complete wreck.
So the next day, you didn't say anything to your family, your father, your parents, anything?
No, I was more concerned with my mom and dad about how they were going to react to me taking off from home. And so I called my mom and she begged me to come back. And I said I was scared because I didn't know what my dad was going to do. And she assured me that he wasn't going to, beat me or spank me or anything like that. So she just wanted me to come home. But I didn't tell her what had happened to me.
And this is the next day then?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so after that, this is when, I guess, did they start to notice immediately a change in your behavior after that?
I don't think so, because it was the summertime. I just wrote that final exam for high school. I just finished grade 9. So it was the summertime, so I didn't have to worry about going to school every day. So they didn't notice anything.
And then, so then you said here that you turned to drugs and you became very promiscuous. Is this between the ages of 14 and 15?
Usually, probably 15 and 16. Yeah, I'd say later in my 15th year, 15 and then 16. I was getting into bars. I always looked older than what I was. So I'd go out with my older cousin. We'd go drinking, we'd go partying. I started looking for love in all the wrong places, because that's what really messed me up. Is I was raised to believe that, like, you save your virginity till you're married. And because I had been raped, I felt like I was dirty. I felt like I was used goods. I felt that no one was going to love me. And my whole views on sex and love got twisted. And I thought that maybe if I gave guys sex, they would love me. So I became promiscuous because of that whole shift in my thinking, in my mindset. I mean, it was a really confusing time because, like I said, I was raised to believe you save your virginity until you're married. Like in a Catholic family, I was constantly told, God is watching you, and if you do something wrong, he's going to punish you.
But you didn't do anything wrong.
And I ran away from home.
Yeah, but
I thought that being raped was my punishment.
It's interesting.
I thought that for years.
I have a saying that you can't work on yourself when you're sorry.
It's okay.
So
the healing never stops.
I bet.
It's been 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it still affects me when I least expect it. I mean, yeah, of course we're talking about it, so that's, a trigger, but it's just that I guess no one's really asked me such direct questions about that night, and I wasn't really prepared for it, I guess, mentally. I didn't know what to expect, with talking to you today. And the whole purpose of me wanting to share my story is to lead by example, because there's so many women out there that have had worse experiences than this, ongoing experiences, and they don't know where to go or who to turn to. They don't think there's any hope for changing or healing or getting better or getting out of the situation. It's probably one of the worst things in the world, abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, mental, whatever. All abuse is just horrible. And I didn't know when I was a teenager what the proper coping strategies were. And so I finally got into counseling when I was in my early 20s. And I learned a lot of different techniques. But afterwards, after I was done with counseling, and actually it wasn't until about 6 years ago when I started blogging online and, started my websites and everything, that I learned about a technique that for some reason no one had ever taught me about. And that's positive affirmations. And that's really one of the techniques that helped me the most. I mean, I learned tons in counseling and, over the years, and I put them into play and I practiced them and everything. And they help, of course. They take a long time to help, though, it seems. But positive affirmations are really, really powerful, and they start working in like as short a time as a week.
Is that like self-talk?
It is. It's basically repeating positive statements to yourself every single day, whether you read them aloud, like read them or say them aloud, whatever method you choose to use them. And I actually included a whole chapter in the book that I wrote, From Note to Hope, all about positive affirmations. And I made that chapter available for free on one of my websites. So positive affirmations are really powerful because they work quickly and they have the ability to completely change your mindset and thought and belief process. Now, after I had tried to kill myself, and
can I ask you a question about that first?
Sure.
I remember this is your show. I know I'm kind of direct with my questioning sometimes. Leading up to that, you're in like an emotional hurricane here, right?
Oh yeah, I was a total mess.
And are you going to school during that time?
Yes, I was. Like I said, I went back, I started grade 10 in September for the semester. I ended up missing so much school because I was so depressed all the time, and I just, wanted to sleep in, and, then I'd go partying at night, and it just, it was a vicious cycle. And so I fell behind in my schoolwork because I couldn't concentrate. I wasn't there half the time. So I quit, and then, each semester I'd go back and the whole process would repeat itself. I'd quit again. I'd go back, I'd quit again. Like it was just horrible. And when I was 15, I had a bunch of pills, Tylenol 3s with codeine. And I thought, maybe if I just take them all, it'll kill me. And I'll go to sleep and I'll never wake up. And that was my plan. And instead of killing me, it just made me really, really sick. Like to the point where I was vomiting. When I first felt that I had to throw up, I tried walking to the bathroom and I was stumbling all over. Like I was dizzy and I couldn't see straight. And it was, so that's what the pills did to me. And I guess by throwing up, I got most of them out of, the poison or whatever out of my system. And so I had written all about this experience when I first started writing online. It was an article I wrote, I want to kill myself. What do I do? And I noticed after a while, like it ranked really high on Google, and I was getting over 500 people a day reading that story.
Holy mackerel.
And yeah, and after I had written the story, I also offered advice about what to do if you're feeling suicidal or if you're feeling that depressed that you just don't know where to turn to. And so once I realized I was getting so many people reading that, I thought, And I thought, how can I best do this? I mean, I provide some stuff in that article, but I thought, I really need to share more of what I had been through and all of the strategies and techniques that I used to cope that I learned over the years. And so I ended up writing a book called From Nope to Hope. And I shared all of that in that book. So I invited a few of my friends that had experiences with suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts to share their experiences and write a chapter of my book. So I have 4 people that ended up contributing. I changed all of their names, to protect everybody.
Sure.
But it was their words and their experiences and their true stories. One guy, actually, it was interesting because we became friends on Facebook. And then 3 months later, he sent me a message and he says, I just came to realize you're the same Lorraine that wrote the article about killing yourself. And he said, I read your true story like 3 months ago. He says, that's what ended up saving my life.
Wow. See, I think you're very courageous, actually. I think you're very courageous.
I couldn't believe, I was really flabbergasted that I made such of an impact on somebody.
You're making a difference for sure. Like people's stories like yours, when one of the major issues with all this is that people feel so alone.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's why I shared my story online, and that's why I wrote my book, because I want people to know. And that's why I go on so many podcasts spreading, my experiences with all of this, because I know how that feels. It's devastating.
Sure.
It feels like there's no hope in the world whatsoever.
Why is it that, and this is maybe a crazy question, I don't even know if it makes sense, but what is it about rape that is so damaging? It's so damaging. I speak to women about it on the I Am Not Alone podcast, and it's so painful. It's I don't know what it is. Why is it so destructive? I know it sounds immature. Obviously it's destructive, but there's just something just so degrading about it for young women that it's very difficult to get over.
It is. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. The first thing that popped into my mind is the loss of control. You do not have control, the woman who's being raped or whoever is being raped, because men get raped too.
Yeah, sure.
So the rape victim has no control over the situation. And I know for me, and I don't know if this is a result of being that, but I'm a little bit of a control freak now. I need to feel as though I am in control of what is actually possible of me controlling. And so I know, especially, I don't know if I even want to go there, but that might be sharing too much information. Okay, so let me answer your question first. Sure. Why is it so destructive?
Yeah, it's very, it seems like it's completely, rips everything out from under them.
It doesn't affect you. It's not just a physical act. It's an emotional act. It messes with your head. I know for me, yes, physically, I was, because I was a virgin, my hymen was ruptured and I started bleeding, and it wasn't my period. It was bleeding as a result of the force, that was exerted upon me. But more than that, it's the mental and emotional component that gets damaged and changed and is super hard to repair. In my case, I said, I had these beliefs with, I was being punished for, that was my punishment. And, which subsequently made me think, oh, well, if God is this all powerful and loving sinner being or whatever, why the hell did he suffer so much? And so I basically, my belief system was shattered in terms of my religion. My belief system was shattered in terms of what love and sex were. I didn't know what to think. I mean, here I am, 14 years old, basically still a kid, and not
Totally a
knowing,
kid.
not knowing, like, in a process of growth. I mean, my brain hadn't fully grown. I mean, your brain doesn't grow till, 18 to 21 or something like that.
Sure.
That's when it stops growing. So here I am, still going through growth. And when something happens to you that interrupts or disrupts that growth, obviously you're going to be affected. I mean, it's almost the same as, the shaking baby syndrome. You shake a baby and something's going to go wrong in the baby's head, and you're disrupting that baby's growth. You're disrupting the natural progression of life. For other victims, I mean, sometimes it's physically so traumatic. You think of a situation where there's, like 4 or 5 people raping you. Maybe it's like a gang initiation, or, whatever, for whatever reason it happens. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you don't want to be in crowds of 3 or 4 people anymore because it's all you can think of. Or, I mean, it's just, it's all in the way you associate things in your mind. And it's just destructive on so many levels. Like, you can point it to just one thing because there's so many layers of destruction involved in such a traumatic incident.
So there's an element to it too that I've noticed when I've spoken to some of the moms on the I Am Not Alone show, and some of the stuff's been edited out and not released on the internet, but there's like this shame element to it that's very powerful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like this giant shadow of shame prevents you from even reaching out to people that love you and telling them that, hey, I've been hurt here. This person hurt me, and they want to hide the perpetrator as well as their own shame. And there's sort of like this, there's like this dark, evil bond between the perpetrator and the victim that makes people want to hide it and put it under the covers and try to forget about it or something that I think even makes it worse.
Oh, it completely makes it worse. And, in my case, the shame came from feeling like I was dirty and used and not worthy of anything, of being loved, of, of finding a future partner, of anything. I mean, there was a great deal of guilt, and the shame came from that. And, for some reason, the victims always think it's their fault.
Yeah. Why is that?
Somehow. I personally think it's for 2 reasons. Number one is the upbringing and, what you're taught as a child to believe. Like I said, in my case, God's watching you. And if you do something wrong, he's going to punish you. So I did something wrong by running away, and so I was punished by being raped. That was my punishment. So there's that. And then there's also the media, saying, oh, well, if you wear like a mini skirt and high heels and, dress all pretty, like you're asking for it. Like, you're dressing slutty, so it's your fault. And that is completely not true, but it's what the media projects into people's heads. So I do blame, and you see that in advertising everywhere. I mean, sex sells, sex appeal sells. You see it everywhere. And, it contributes to the shame, and it's too bad that that's how victims end up feeling, because When I went to counseling and I explained all the guilt and shame I was feeling to my counselor, she said, it's not your fault. And I was adamant. Yeah, it's my fault. I'm being punished for something I did. And it took months of discussing it and looking at all the issues for me to realize that, yes, the decision to run away and leave home was my fault, but the decision to be raped was not my decision.
No.
And I had no control over that. So it was not my fault.
Of course not. But you know what? You know what's interesting? There's this old saying that I've said a couple of times on this show where it's hard to work on yourself when you're in yourself, right? So sometimes, like, what is so obvious to others, like even the people that love you, like that are close to you, what would be so obvious when you mix sex into it, it becomes extremely confusing, and like there's all kinds of other chemicals and emotions going on in your brain, especially a young person, 14 years old. It's very, very confusing. It's like your brain becomes like a toxic wasteland because of this, and you can't think straight anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've seen in my work on the other podcasts, is that it's like it's like one of the things that gets taken from you in rape is your ability to think logically as to what happened.
Definitely.
And there's like this ongoing power control that stays in there. There's like your power has been taken from you and now it's gone, and you're confused and you're alone and you don't know what to do. And it seems like there's something psychological going on here that people have not, I think that, I don't know. I think we don't take sex and rape. I know it sounds great. We take rape. What are you talking about? What about this Me Too movement? And it's like, I'm not sure that all that stuff, if people really take sexuality, especially with young people, like teenagers and even minors, like younger than teenagers, if we as a society take sexuality and these situations as seriously as we should. Because I think the impacts are so powerful and long-term, especially with rape, but even with situations where maybe it's not rape. It's just people don't know what they're doing and they don't know what the long-term consequences of it are, Lorraine.
It's true. I don't think it's taken as seriously. I don't think the impact that's long-term has been fully realized by other people, like especially professionals working with the victims. I often felt when I was in counseling, like, you don't understand me. You'll never understand me because you haven't been through it. And the only people that are going to understand me are the people who have actually had some kind of experience with it. And so, I mean, there's so much distrust and resentment towards all people after that. You think in your mind, oh, if I tell somebody, you expect them to react a certain way, and then you're disappointed when they don't react in the way that you thought they would. There's so many psychological factors at play. And I mean, it doesn't have to be the actual, the abuse doesn't have to be as extensive as rape. It could just be a touch from a person who is not supposed to touch you. And it will create those same exact feelings as being raped would. And
I'm not sure.
I'm going
to say.
But the reason I say this, Michael, is because I had been raped as a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was like 29, 30, I was at a family member's house. and staying with that person because I had moved away and I'd come back to the home to visit for a little bit, and I was staying at this person's house, and it was just me and him there, and I was wearing a nightgown. It was almost bedtime. I was called over close to him. I stood there, and he took his hand, he put it between my legs while I was wearing my nightgown. And just being touched created, it was like I was being raped all over again. It created all those feelings, all those, everything. Like it was just awful. So that's why I say, it doesn't have to be, like penetration doesn't have to occur. Like abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter in which form it comes, whether it's
it messes with your head,
or it's just one simple touch that you wouldn't think would have such an effect, but it does.
I bet. So that it's. I think there's something to the power dynamic there, in losing your power again, or being vulnerable again, or something like that. That's very, very, very hard to remove yourself from, in a way.
There's that, and then there's also your belief system, because you believe your family members are the people that are supposed to love you, care for you, protect you from harm, and not cause it. And so when you have,
it's confusing,
especially when you have lived in a whole, you've lived like, a whole lifetime. Like I was like 20, I was either 29 or 30. I can't remember exactly. And, you live a whole lifetime believing and seeing the person act a certain way. And then out of the blue, that's all destroyed in 1 second. Like it's ridiculous. Like the amount of power, something that shouldn't have that much power actually has. Like what comes to mind at the moment is I was in a skidooing accident. I literally veered off the path because I got stuck in an ice rut, and I hit this pole on the side of the path, and I went flying over, and my leg connected with the post, and I almost lost my leg because of it. I had damaged so much blood vessels and everything. And it happened in that 1 split second when my leg connected with the post. And it was, it changed my life, because now, I had to have two surgeries on my leg. It took me 6 months to heal from it and learn how to walk all over again. My leg is still deformed. I have a really bad scar. This is something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. The cold in the wintertime affects it when I go outside for more than 3 minutes. It starts throbbing. There's like a whole long list of physical things that's going on. Never mind the whole part that when I used to look down at my leg and I'd get depressed, my whole self-body image and everything changed. So that 1 split second of my life where I was in that accident has affected me for the rest of my life. Just like that one bad touch from a trusted family member has affected my psyche as well. There's no difference between the two in my mind. Like it's that 1 split second that has, it just changes everything. And women, victims often think, okay, what if I did this? What if I would have done that?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the blame and the guilt and the shame all come into play, because in retrospect, it's super easy to say, oh, I should have made this decision. Well, okay, but I didn't. So now I'm suffering the consequences.
Sure.
So again, there's the self-blame and it's such a messed up subject because it messes with your head.
Yeah, for sure.
And no one person, like the experiences are different for everybody, but yet the effects are pretty much the same.
There's this underlying lack of control and powerlessness and vulnerability that's been lost, and the inability to trust, you know, and then
couple that with the feelings of worthlessness and guilt and shame and all those negative things. Like, I mean, it's amazing to me that all of us have survived. You know, we've lived to tell our tale.
Survivor is the right
honestly,
word.
Because it's so much. Like I said, you know, I tried killing myself when I was 15. I know that suicidal thoughts and you know, all these things are prevalent in victims.
It's connected.
You know, you get
the two are connected for sure.
Oh, for sure. And the thing is, and that's what's really interesting when it comes to suicide, is you don't actually want to end your life. You just want to end your pain.
That's interesting.
And that's what I know that to believe. I believe that to be true. I know it to be true. I'm living proof of it. When I was in the hospital during one of my operations, I ran into this other younger woman who was, I think she was around 23 or 24. And she was there because she had multiple suicide attempts. And I said to her, I said, she was a total stranger. We were just outside having a cigarette and she started telling me all this. And I'm like wondering, like, why is she telling me this? And I said to her, I said, you don't actually want to end your life. I said, you just want your pain to end. She says, you're right. I said, I know, because you know what? I've been there. And then I ended up giving her a copy of my book just because I wanted to help her.
Yeah, for sure. Well, she was reaching out to you.
Yeah. And I recognize that because I had,
sure.
I've been there. And so after
when you smile, you have beautiful energy comes out of you. Actually,
I made a difference in her life
too,
because I ended up we had exchanged phone numbers and everything. So I texted her one day, and I said, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh, I'm great. I'm out of the hospital. I'm doing really well. And I said, oh, did you read? I said, did you read my book at all? Did it help? She said, yeah, it totally helped. I'm like, thank you. I said, I just wanted to know that you're okay. I said, if you ever need someone, I said, please contact me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So yeah, sometimes it's just, and that's why I share what I share. And that's why
there's something transcendent about what you're doing.
Because not everybody has the strength to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. Especially on a podcast, I know, we're recording this.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, like a million people, like my rapist could be listening. Like, anybody could be listening. Like, it doesn't matter. The people that are listening, somebody out there is going to be touched and moved and realize that they can take back the power of their life. They have the power to take back the power. You just need to, take one step in the right direction, because believe me, it can be done. I mean, I'm living proof. I went from being a high school dropout, a drug addict, a prostitute, a single mother, to going to university, getting 2 degrees, teaching for a while, then starting my own business, writing a couple of books, and now helping other people. And it's totally possible to change your life because I am living proof. And that's one thing that not everybody can find the strength to do that.
For sure.
And that's why I share so much with other people, is because, it's tough. Like, you put yourself, like earlier, okay, so you were asking, firing questions at me about, the night I was raped and everything else. And I broke down and cried. Well, that's a normal reason. Many women and other victims of it. So that's a normal reaction.
Of course.
But then there's the point where, like you said, I think of somebody I helped and I smile. And I know I've made a difference, and that is what I live for.
Yeah,
That's what I live for, is
when
helping others.
When you speak about that, you just radiate beautiful energy. So you obviously had a rough and tumultuous teenage year of your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your son was born when you were 18.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened after that?
What do you mean what happened after that?
So then did you get into the single moms program right after your son was born?
Yeah, he was 7 months old, and I decided I needed to go back to school so I could give him a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up finding a program for single mothers that would allow me to complete my high school credits and get my diploma. So it was a special program that was held at the Adult Education Center in Thunder Bay, where I live. And it was headed by two women there was actually two programs. There was one for teenagers who were pregnant, and there was one for teenagers teenagers or women who had just had their babies and wanted to finish their high school credits. So it took me 4 years to finish basically 3 years of high school through correspondence work. It's like the booklets, like you get a booklet, you read the stuff, then you do the exercises. But instead of mailing it away, or like now, I guess today that would be submitting it online to somebody. The teachers at the school actually marked it right there on site.
Okay.
And so it was a very unique program, a very helpful program, and a very much needed program. And a lot of people ended up using it to graduate and get their high school diplomas. And I'm proud to say that I was one of them.
Wow. And then when did you get involved in university?
Well, I in my final year of the program that I was in, I decided I wanted to become a math and English teacher. I wanted to teach high school. The reason being is I wanted to be there for students who were teenagers and who went through the same thing that I went through. I thought maybe that would be the best way for me to reach them, to reach these teenagers and let them know that, hey, somebody out here cares. And because I've always loved both math and English, and you need two subjects to teach high school, that's what I decided to go into university for. And so in my final year of the program, getting my high school credits, I live in Ontario, and back then in Ontario, we had something called OACs, which were Ontario Academic Credit. Right, because you're in Toronto, so you understand what I'm talking about, but the rest of the world won't. But anyway, so it was still back then, in the 1980s, where we had, it was 80s and early 90s. Yeah, we had the OACs, and they didn't actually offer specific courses in math for me at the program I was in. They only had limited choices. So one of my teachers talked to one of her colleagues who was a math teacher, and he actually got a hold of a high school textbook and created a independent course for me to take, where he marked the lessons, checked my work, gave me the exams and everything, so that I could actually get those credits and because they were prerequisites for my university program.
Sure.
So he went out of his way. His name totally believed in me and my abilities. And, thank you. I've thanked him many times over the years.
Cheers to Guy Davis.
Yes.
All those people out there on the road that help people is such a wonderful thing, right?
And, and they sometimes don't even realize what an impact they make, and when they hear about it, it's those kind of moments that they live for. Like, I can remember, like how I was saying, I wanted to get into the high schools because I wanted to reach somebody. The
Sure.
only teacher that I can remember ever reaching out to me was Brian DePiro at St. Patrick's High School. And after I could remember just one morning after I was leaving his class, he just said, "Hey, Lorraine." And I stopped. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And that was all he said to me. Like, he just looked at me and gave me a look, and I could still remember exactly, he was looking at his books, but he wanted to, that was his way of reaching out to me to let me know that, hey, he was there for me. He cared. And I never, ever forgot that. And when I wrote my book a couple of years ago, I actually looked him up. He's a retired teacher now. He's retired. And I found his number, and I phoned him up, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And we started talking, and I said, I just wanted to thank you because just that one sentence made a huge difference in my day that day. And he was shocked that, I even remembered that, and shocked that he had made such an impact on me with, just one sentence. And I ended up talking with him, and I told him about my book, and I said, and he's like, you should go into the schools and, share your experiences with these students. Like,
have you done that?
Even though he gave me a contact person, told me who to call. I haven't called yet. And
I think you should do that.
You know what? It's funny because I did a podcast last week, and this very same topic came up, and the guy that I did it with, he said too, you should do that, right? And so I think I need to, because it's like twice now in the past week that it's come up, and it's something I've just been kind of putting off, and I'm not quite sure why.
So many people need to hear, like, not the solution to the problem, because who knows what the solution is, but so many people need to hear from someone like you said, that that, I'm going to use your own words, that's hit rock bottom and come back. And that hey, these things are real, the confusion is normal. You need to find someone you can trust, that you can talk to about these things, and the sooner the better, right?
Yeah I do agree with that. Which it makes me question, like, why haven't I made that phone call? I mean, it's been 2 years.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
What am I afraid of? Like, it makes me wonder. I'll tell you what you're
afraid of. It's hard to heed that call, because what you're doing takes a tremendous amount of courage. Okay. It's one thing for you to come on, this show or whatever show, podcast, write a book. Those take enough courage as it is, but you're going to be standing in front of people, a group of people. Speaking in front of people is very difficult. You need to have more compassion for yourself, because that's difficult. And not only that though, but, you're wading into a debate right now out there that's very controversial. For some reason, there's people on different sides of this, and not that anybody's on the side of, but the whole Me Too thing, there's a lot of people in that space capturing it and that, and your message is not one of, your message is raw and real, and it's about yourself. You're going to open up yourself and say, hey, this is what happened to me, and it hurts bad, and I don't know what the solution is, but the solution is not to hide it. That's kind of the message I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, you have to talk about it, definitely. And that's one thing that I wasn't able to do after being raped, because I didn't think anybody was there. I didn't feel comfortable with anybody to the point where I could reveal what had happened to me. And so it became like a secret, and it was something, like you mentioned earlier about, victims tend to hide it and not talk about it. And that's completely true, because if you feel like you don't have anybody that will understand or react in the way that you hope they're going to react, or even be willing to help you, or even just to be willing to listen. I mean, nowadays, yes, there's a lot of openness and people are more willing to talk about issues that were never discussed before. But this happened to me back in the, early to mid 1980s, 1985, I believe. And I was born in 71. I was 14. I wasn't 15 yet. So yeah, it was 1985, 1986. And yeah, this was a time period where everything was not talked about. Like everything was hush hush. Like you didn't air your dirty laundry in public. Like I didn't have anyone that I felt that I could share this with. Not even my own mom.
The one thing that I totally understand it, because I mean, I've interviewed some other people about this topic. One thing that always confuses me, and I don't understand this, but it seems to undercurrent. So one thing was the shame that's there. Mm-hmm. The second thing is the guilt. I don't because there's a difference between guilt and shame. Those are two different things, right? So you talk about guilt, like why is it that victims also feel guilty about talking about it? Like I'm not talking about like spreading the mess, like considering spreading the message like you are.
Well, it has to do with like being blamed, like I said, like when people, they'll say, well, what were you wearing? Oh, you were wearing a short skirt. Oh, well, it's your fault. You were asking for it. So there's a whole stigma attached to victims and why it's them that became victims, as opposed to someone else. Like if there's two girls walking down the street and one's wearing pants and one's wearing a skirt, and it's the girl with the skirt that gets raped, it's automatically because, it's because she was wearing a skirt, it's her fault. Like it's ridiculous, but that's how people react when you tell them. And so it creates this whole stigma of fearing what other people are going to say. And if they're going to blame you, that creates the silence. Like, why would I want to tell somebody something if they're just going to come back at me and throw it in my face and say it's my fault? Obviously, I'm not going to talk to them. Like, why would I? Why would I subject myself to further ridicule?
Yeah, for sure. But do you think that's a possibility? Like, do you think that if you had gone to your parents and said, hey, that night when and I don't mean to bring up the past, or if person X, let's talk about you if it's sensitive, but were to go to most people have parents that love them. Now, even some parents that are not the best parents still love their children, right? And don't want bad things to happen to them, even if they are not the best parents. And do you think that if you went to your parents when you were 14 and asked them, hey, this is what happened last night or the other night or 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago, do you think that they would have...
No, my parents, my mom would have been the person I would have told. And honestly, I don't think that she would have had the wherewithal to realize I needed like counseling. She would have just said, well, I'm sorry this happened to you, but you're just going to have to live with it. Or, and that's a common reaction with a lot of people because they don't know what the proper course of action is to help the person get better or help the person
does anyone
heal.
know?
Honestly, I don't know. I do know that there's, counseling and talking to other people definitely help. I know that there's certain techniques and strategies that definitely help. I don't, it's funny because it's been 33 years now and I still obviously am affected by what happened.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
I probably will be for the rest of my life, which then, begs the question, what's the point? What's the point of talking to other people if you're still going to be affected? What's the point if you're still not going to be completely healed from it? Like, what's the point of talking about it? What's the point of reliving all the pain if you're still going to have to experience these feelings and emotions? But given the fact that I have shared my story and talked about it so much with other people, I can honestly say I am stronger now. It's not as painful as it used to be. I am able to have conversations about what happened without becoming a blubbering mess and having it like so deeply affect me to the point where I end up in tears. I mean, crying is a form of therapy as well. You have to, find a release and let it out. But also, I mean, 10 years ago, I never would have been able to have this conversation with you. 5 years ago, maybe. Today, definitely. So even though it's been, many, 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 many years since it's happened to me, I only actually really started talking more about, I talked in my 20s when I was in the counseling and, this and that, but I also had other things going on. And I was a single mom. I was getting my career going with teaching and school and everything else. Same within my 30s. And then I quit and I had other things happen. I quit teaching high school. I moved back to my hometown, ended back up in prostitution. My son found out what I was doing. He disowned me. We had a period of 3 years where we didn't speak at all. During that first year, I ended up smoking crack, and that's when I hit my rock bottom. And it was, for 10 months of my life, that's what I did. And then everything completely changed, and I realized like I need to fix my life. I need to get it back on track. And so I got off the streets, off the drugs. I started making better choices for my life, and because I wanted my son back in my life. And when all that happened, and I was actually on my way to getting healthy and everything else, then my appendix burst.
I know. I read that in your.
It's like one thing after another. But you know what? Honestly, that was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me, and I'll tell you why. I had suicidal
I've never heard
thoughts
anyone
for years.
say the best thing that ever happened to me was my appendix bursting. But anyway, sorry about that.
Because you want to know, is I was literally dying, like literally dying. And having had suicidal thoughts for so many years and having to, like want to die and everything else, when I was actually faced with it, it's like, no, I don't want this. And that was my turning moment. I, for one thing, want to die without saying goodbye to my son, because it was at the end of this 3 year mark. I mean, that's why it was 3 years, because I ended up reconnecting with him afterwards. But I didn't want to die without saying goodbye to my son. I didn't want to die without achieving some of my dreams. And I didn't want to die because I realized I never actually to die. I just wanted my pain to end.
You had a dark night of the soul.
Yeah. And so that was my aha moment. Like when I had this epiphany, realized, okay, this is it. This is for sure, a sign from God or whoever, like you got to change now and you got to do it now. So I ended up reconnecting with my son. I ended up going and starting starting sharing things online. I bought my computer and I started learning about blogging. A year later, I opened my business. I was doing freelance writing. Then I was doing freelance editing. Then I was learning about becoming an author. And I learned that in today's day and age, with the technology that we have, anybody can become an author. Anyone. And self-publish and sell their books on Amazon. And I'm like, how cool is that? Like,
pretty cool.
I wanted to pursue my writing career, and here I am learning about this gift that was given to everybody in this world, that anybody, as long as you have the knowledge, you can do it. And so anyone
can start a podcast too.
Exactly. And and it's so cool now that with the technology that we have,
Yeah.
like so many things are possible. People are starting businesses from home. They don't even have to go out anymore to make money. Like,
Sure.
they can like sit in a little corner of their house in a closet even if they want and
Yeah.
start a like multi-million-dollar business. Like so I learned about becoming an author, and I became an author. I helped other people become authors. And then so I added all those things into my business, which my business is called Wording Well.
I was going to
I
ask
work
about
with
that.
words. Yeah.
Sure.
So Wording Well, I do writing, editing, and I help other people become authors. And then if people also want, private one-on-one coaching, I can do that too. So yeah, I mean, it's just great, So now I'm living. I would say like I'm pretty close to living the life of my dreams because I have a lot of freedoms that I never ever had before with the path my life is now on. I've got to this point by educating myself and taking a small step every day in the right direction, and and talking about my experiences and sharing them with others and moving forward. And for me, that's what I'm all about, is moving forward and helping other people. And the money aspect of it doesn't really factor in too much because my mission is I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And whether
Whenever you
no,
speak
go ahead,
about
sorry.
whenever you speak about helping people, you just radiate positive energy. It's really unbelievable, actually. There it is, right there again. Like you
Because
just,
that's my passion. It's
yeah,
like
no,
that's
when it,
what
yeah,
I am meant to do, is help
yes,
other people.
yes, and
And that's why I wanted to become a teacher. That's why I became a teacher. I
mm,
wanted to help others. And then after like my accident where I almost lost my leg, I wasn't physically able to return to
mm,
teaching in the classroom. And so I found an alternate way of helping people. And that was by starting a website and sharing writing and sharing my experiences with other people. And so I now help people that way. And then now I also do podcasts. I believe I am meant to do is just keep helping other people and make a difference in other people's lives somehow,
mm.
whether it's helping them become an author, whether it's helping them with their words, helping them with their website, helping them with whatever. But it was when I after I wrote my book and realized like there were so many people that needed help in that area, that's when I realized like this is another area where I definitely have to help people. Like this is almost my calling. Like you hear people saying like they're called to do something.
Mm-hmm.
This is like I just found myself in this position of other people looking at me like I was an inspiration and courageous and strong and
You
everything
are
else.
an
And
inspiration.
I always thought that when I shared my story, and a perfect example of how society negatively affects us is because I thought as soon as I shared my story, all of the things people were going to zone in on the negative. Either like for me, I thought that would be the prostitution aspect.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, people are going to look at me. They're going to, the whole stigma, like you're dirty, you're a drug addict, you're diseased, you're this, you're that. And I thought that that's what people would zone in on and focus on,
Hmm.
and that's all they would see. And when I was invited to actually share my whole story about, it's called rape, drugs, and prostitution: one blogger's journey to success. Back in, I think it was 2014, 2015, I was invited to share my story on someone else's website through an article, a blog post. And I wrote all about the night that I was raped. And then I wrote all about the subsequent positive events that happened after my son and I reconnected. And I shared I basically bared my soul online for the very first time. And I was terrified to do it. I thought, oh, people would just focus on the negative. And I was so surprised when everybody reacted positively to it with praise and encouragement and support and love. And I mean, the outpouring of love and positivity it stunned me, like absolutely stunned me. And I was now looked at by other people as all of these things that you like, you know, brave, courageous, strong, inspiring, all these other things. And I never ever looked at myself that way.
I look at you that way.
But I never looked at myself that way.
You're a person to be admired.
And so I found myself, I found myself in this position of being an example to other people, like whether I wanted to be or not. And then I realized, like, you know what? Hey, this is actually pretty cool, you know?
You can do
it. And when I started, when I started getting emails and messages from people, and comments even on my website about, my suicide attempt, and everybody saying, like, thank you you just saved my life,
Sure.
Thank you. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, the impact that I had on other people was astounding. I never expected to hear that you saved my life. Like, and I thought, holy shit, like, this is pretty cool. Like, this is amazing to hear, and I've only heard from like a handful of people. So
the people that comment are rare. Like, so for every comment, you probably have for every positive comment, you probably have 100 people that were positively affected.
So yeah, and I was like, these are only the people I actually know about. Yeah. And that's enough. Just knowing that I helped one person is enough.
Sure.
But if I could help even more, I mean, so that's why, like I said, that's why I started writing and sharing and doing podcasts and talking to anybody and everybody that I possibly could about this, to try and get the message out to survivors that you can not only survive, but you can build the life that you want. It's
Lorraine,
possible.
We've been speaking for over an hour. I don't know if you noticed.
It's not uncommon. I'm a talker.
Well, no, your story's fascinating, and I'd love to talk more, but I actually have to run, and I'm sure you have other things to do.
Yeah, actually, I do have another appointment.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, talk about your book a little bit. From nope to hope.
Yeah, it's From Nope to Hope. Shares all the strategies and techniques that I have personally used in my healing process. It also it contains 2 chapters that are free online on my website.
What's your website?
So wordingwell.com is one of my websites, and LorraineReguly.com is another. But if you just Google From Nope to Hope, you'll be brought to either
into your world,
the Amazon, or articles that mention it. It's all over the place. I mean, From Nope to Hope, and I tried to make it kind of a catchy title so people would remember it. Sure. Because nope is like a slang, and it represents all the negative, and hope obviously is it rhymes, and it's it's what we want in our life. We want hope. So yeah, so From Nope to Hope talks about all of those things. It also contains a built-in workbook where I ask the reader questions, and I write your answers to help you start your taking action. And
that's the teacher in you.
Start your healing. Yeah, exactly, and start the healing process right away. It talks about all my experiences. It talks about a couple of other books that have helped me, which are the Courage to Heal books. There's so much in it. So From Nope to Hope. Yeah, because my name's not Lorraine Reguly. It's not always easy to remember. It's not easy to spell. So just Google that, then you'll oh yeah, that's the author's name. That's who
And
we're
we'll
talking
post it
about.
on the website of this show as well. So if you're listeners out there,
Sounds
if you
good.
forget about it, you go to the getagriponlife.com and you find her and it will be on there. Lorraine, it's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for your courage.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me, on your podcast and sharing my message, but also for making me to really take a look at myself too, and bring to light like the fact that yes, I should get myself out into these high schools and help the teenagers.
No pressure, but I think you should.
What I really,
even when you think about it, you start to beam.
Yeah.
You start to beam, but it takes courage. It takes courage
because you know how you say when you're always in your own head, you forget.
Yeah.
And that's what it's been like for me. It's like I forgot my main purpose of why I became a teacher.
It's hard to work on yourself. It's hard to work on yourself when you're in yourself.
And it's the same with the business portion too, for people who it's like the two sides. Yeah. So thank you so much. I am definitely going to make that phone call this week, and I will email you and let you know when I do.
Please do. Lorraine Reguly,
sure.
I'm going to let you go. Thanks for being a guest. Bye for now.
Thanks, Michael. Bye.
Lorraine Reguly. Wow. What a story of a message of hope. And thank you for the courage to share what you shared. And I don't think there's much more I can say about that, but thanks very much. Whew, this feels kind of weird, but if you're looking to create some digital content, check out getagripstudios.com. You come on into the studio. You can do it from your desk at home. You can do it from, I don't know, anywhere you want. Go to getagripstudios.com. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.